Both of us are gripped by the tale of the Salt Path.
Now, if you haven't heard of the Salt Path, let me take you through it. It's a true story of a couple from Wales who, through no fault of their own, lose their house and become homeless. Not only that, the husband in this couple, and they're called Raina Wynn and Moth Wynn, the husband has a degenerative disease, something akin to Parkinson's. They find themselves homeless and they embark on a 630-mile walk around the southwest coast of England called the Salt Path. So it's a memoir, it's a true story. It became a massive phenomenon. Book clubs all around the country love it. It's such an incredibly inspirational story. People have really, really bought into it. It means a great deal to a huge amount of people. So much so that a movie came out a few weeks ago with Gillian Anderson playing Raina Wynn, Jason Isaacs playing Moth Wynn. And it's just one of those incredibly rare success stories where a publisher picks up a small story, a true story, something that speaks to our times, something that speaks about humanity, something that speaks about human beings, and readers really, really jumped on board. This book means a great deal to a great deal of people. So just this incredible true story, strength, adversity, bad luck, just everything about life. But it turns out perhaps it was not true.
And then this weekend, a fantastic investigation in The Observer came out by the journalist Chloe Hadjimateo, but also some additional reporting by Lens on them. There's often quite a few people involved in a big team effort like this, saying that their names aren't really Raina and Moth Wynn. Their names are Sally and Tim Walker.
Walker?
Yeah, Walker. I mean, It was right there.
They turned walking into wins, that's for sure.
Yeah. That those were not the circumstances of how they lost their home. In fact, it's quite a convoluted tale, but it suggests that Sally Walker embezzled money to start with. And then, as I say, it's quite convoluted. There's a loan, there's all sorts of other things. But the embezzlement is the key part of it. And it also contains commentary from various sort of consultant neurologists who say that this diagnosis of corticobasal degeneration, you would normally expect, in fact, nobody really lives beyond 8 years, and it's an awful, awful condition. And 18 years on to be flourishing is essentially unheard of. And of course, occasionally in a blue moon, a medical miracle occurs, but there is a considerable doubt cast on the nature of that aspect of the story as well. So it's pretty much all of it. I mean, I think they did the walk.
Yes, I think, I don't even know if they did all of that. So it is this incredibly inspirational true story, which turns out it may well not be true. Can we not have nice things? This is like Captain Tom's Family all over again. But
could she not have a spa complex, Richard? No, she couldn't. She had to have it knocked down
I bet she has got one. I bet the Walkers have got one. But I cannot overestimate how much this has gone off like a bomb in the world of publishing, because this is a huge, huge, huge lead item for everyone. This has been one of the massive success stories, and publishing, you don't have all that money, and they pay for everything, these big success stories. And The Salt Path is one of those books that has paid for so many other books over the last 8 years. It is massive, and everyone in publishing is absolutely reeling this week.
All of this has been put to Raina and Moth Wynn, and in significant detail, and they've issued the following statement, which is not very detailed. They've said, "The Salt Path lays bare the physical and spiritual journey Moth and I shared, an experience that transformed us completely and altered the course of our lives. This is the true story of our journey." Well, thanks for the blurb, but that does not respond even vaguely to any of the material allegations in this particular investigation. A spokeswoman for the Wynns has said that the allegations made in a Sunday newspaper were highly misleading.
They are consulting lawyers.
Yet they're consulting lawyers. Clearly, this is published by Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll have a lot. Well, let's start talking about it.
Absolutely. I'm published by Penguin Random House, and a bomb would have gone off there this week, because would it have gone on? You see, now I have another theory, which is that I actually think we've all heard the expression, and it means lots of different things. Where there's a hit, there's a writ. Yes,
people often come out of the woodwork when something becomes successful. Rather like those consultant neurologists, I'd be surprised if this was the very, very first that after a book has been that successful, that Penguin Random House have heard that maybe the circumstances at the start of it, certainly, that lead to the whole story taking place don't necessarily add up. I would be surprised if that's the first, because there has been online commentary, which I actually wasn't aware of, but I've gone back and I can see that
I haven't.
it existed.
I keep, as so often in these things, you read people going, "Oh, this was an open secret," and I definitely don't think it was an open secret. I'd never heard before that this was fakery. I hadn't really got involved in the Salt Path world. I can sort of feel that book is not for me. But people just say, "Oh no, we knew," and we'd be at festivals. Gillian Anderson, when they said, "Oh, how did you find Raina Wynn when you met her?" And she went, "I thought she was quite guarded." And you think, yeah, really? The two central tenets at the heart of this book, the things that make it sell a huge amount of money, the things that make it really resonate with Middle Britain and with readers across the world, are they lost their house through no fault of their own. These allegations suggest that is not the case. They lost their house because Sally Walker had embezzled money. They then borrowed from somebody else, and that person had called in the loan, and so the house no longer belonged to them. And also the ability somehow to turn back the course of an illness through communing with nature.
I mean, you have a huge responsibility. Everyone who writes about anything medical and any form of, even in the broadest terms, alternative treatments, has a huge responsibility to bear. Well, and if you're publishing anything that suggests that, then you also have a huge responsibility to bear. As I say, I
saw a woman saying that my husband's got CBD, and I've lost count of the times in the last 5 years that people said, "You must read this book, and perhaps he should go for a long walk." And the despair that I had of understanding that's not something that he was able to do, and not quite understanding what it was that must be in this book. If you're talking about, medical things, and you're talking about what nature can do, and you're talking about, medicinal effects of things, that is a big issue, not only for the Winns, by the way, and that's their
that's their business,
but for the publisher.
Yes, for the publisher, it is the medical aspect is probably the most serious aspect of it. It's interesting. I kept thinking back, and as I say, I don't know the origin story of this, but obviously she's a first-time writer, and I wonder if she perhaps glossed over, as you might do, the circumstances of the loss of the house, because it's much better to get on the walk.
Of course you would.
And they've said, and your editor would say, well, hang on, I think we really want to delve more into this, because the payoff is not so satisfying.
Yeah, and
if
also
we don't see the tragedy, we've got to go really down,
because
and then we can go up.
Raina Wynn's version of the book, there is a bad guy who is an old colleague of Moth Wynn's who sort of asks them to invest in something and then pulls the rug from under them and takes their house. So there's a proper bad guy at the start of the book who we're like, oh my God, you're so unlucky that happened to you. And you would think that an editor might be saying, let's find out a little bit more about that person. I think that person who is Ros Hemmings' husband passed away a few years ago, and she said, Ros Hemmings said, in a way, I'm sort of glad he didn't see this book ever come out, because it would have hurt him so much, the lies in it.
Well, I think it's interesting, but I do nonetheless think, what's the editing procedure there when you're saying, okay, this person did this thing to us? You're still thinking, if you're the lawyer, okay, can this person be identified? If this person can be identified, are they still alive? You're going through all of those different processes. You have to be so careful with all of these things, as we say. And you can get away with things in books that you might not be able to on TV or whatever. But if that person is dead, then even so, I think you'd have to produce, I would be, if I was publishing this book, I would require these people to produce some forms of evidence. And maybe they just said, well, we don't have anything left because we put what we had in our backpacks and we went on our walk.
Or it's too painful for us.
If over the next few days, weeks, whatever, the amount of people coming out of the woodwork because they've been emboldened by this and it's gone public to speak out, and the claims become sort of are able to be sort of fairly incontrovertibly proved to be false, what do you then do if you're Penguin Random House?
Gosh, it's a very interesting question. I think that probably you try and claw back some of the money that you've passed over. I don't know this particular contract. The contract would normally be that they have guaranteed that everything in this piece is truthful. And again, things can be highly misleading, but if something is a deliberate lie, then Penguin Random House, I guess, would have some sort of recourse. Obviously, any money you do get back in, that's got to go straight to some sort of charity. I mean, it has to, because Penguin Random House will know also that they've been remiss here. When you're involved in a book and you have that sort of fan groups around the book, how much these books mean to people, and especially with this one, it's to do with illness. What this means to people, so that people are going to be very, very hurt. I suggest that there would be, on one hand, there'll be some legal issues if these things do turn out to be not true. And on the other hand, some reputational work that would need doing. And
someone's getting a new neurology wing, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get on to more, other instances of disputed memoirs or memoirs that have been proved to be false in a minute. But as we've talked about so many times, and we're going to probably talk about in another item on this podcast, people are obsessed with authenticity in this age. They are totally obsessed. They've, as we've said, people feel that Instagram influencers or the Beckhams or whoever are misselling them something when it's really not that big of a deal. I have a lot of sympathy with anyone who feels lied to by this book, if the allegations in that article are correct. And by the way, the Wins / Walkers have not said they're not correct. They've just said this is a lovely uplifting story. This is our truth. Now, to some extent, all memoirs, I was thinking about this on the way in to talk to you, and I was thinking, to some extent, all memoirs are reality bending, because you're writing them at a point in that you're not writing them contemporaneously,
and usually you want to be the hero of your own memoir, one way or another.
Well, I mean, that is the tricky element of lots of them. And as the reader, you're thinking, is this what is truth? Am I getting the kind of recovered feeling as it occurred at the time? Or am I, like most things in human life, that I'm getting order is being imposed on this kind of tide of experience that happened back in the day, and a narrative is being created. So to some extent, all memoirs have those sort of things, and you leave out lots of things, and you shape a narrative. But this is likely to send the mumsnetters, the tattle-lifers, all the people who might go nuts about things like this off the dial, especially as they've loved it. It's meant such a lot. It's become this film. It's one of those inspirational stories of boomers walking somewhere, which is actually a genre.
I mean, it really is a genre.
There's been so many of these sort of films and books over the last, something happens to a boomer, maybe health related, or maybe something else related.
Then they meet a baby tiger, and everything's okay.
And if they walk, they need to walk.
So it's worth thinking. So if I take you through the publishing process and where Penguin Random House, which my publishers would have been, so it's Michael Joseph, which is one of the imprints of Penguin Random House. When this came in on submission, you would buy it, I think, because of the story. You'd immediately, or you would certainly take a meeting. You kind of go, this is really, there's not a lot that gets sent into publishers where they go, I haven't read this before. And she can clearly write Raina Wynn. I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but she's no Margaret's, it's uplifting and all of those things. So Raina and Moth will come in. You will chat away. It will not be an enormous book. You're not thinking, oh my God, this is going to be The Salt Path.
Yeah.
This is going to sell 2 million copies. This is going to be a movie with Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs. You're definitely not thinking that. You're thinking, is this worth a £30,000 advance and some marketing money? It's probably what you're thinking at that stage.
I don't think you even need to pay 30, to be quite honest.
But that would be, if you really like it,
very well.
And you're thinking other publishers are going to look at this, other publishers are going to see that there's something in this. Now, the contract you sign, or the contract that the Wins would have signed, they take on all the indemnity for any lies that are in their account. So Penguin Random House, same with Hachette, HarperCollins, all of these companies, if you sign something like this, the onus is on the author to be telling the truth. There is nothing beholden on the publishers to have fact-checked this stuff. Okay, I mean, one imagines you would, and you'll certainly do some of your due diligence, but they do not have any legal issues because Raina and Moth, or however they signed their contracts, one assumes, by the way, that the checks got sent to Tim and Sally Walker, but that's another thing. So they would have signed their contract, therefore everything is on them. They have said to Penguin Random House, to Michael Joseph, everything we've told you is true. And in the same way, when the movie rights are bought, and normally movie companies do quite a lot more due diligence because they're not paying £30,000 for something, they're paying.
And as I said, it's so weird. Something being on the screen is so different. I mean, I'm thinking I'm adapting something at the moment, and it would be so different, even though in the book, if you can vaguely identify people, it doesn't matter. You've got to create completely new characters because it's too close.
So making a movie, you're spending millions. So you're spending 3-4 million probably. So at that point, you think maybe we do our due diligence, but also the place I'd like to be is inside the heads of Sally and Tim Walker when the movie deal gets made, because I think they probably got away with it with the book. They've done 2 follow-up books, which are Wild Silence and Landlines. Raina Wynn's got a very, very nice career. She's made millions. They've got a nice house down in Cornwall. In fact, in the second book, is based on the fact that a city trader read the first book, felt so sorry for them, he gave them a property in Cornwall to live in if they could rewild it for him. I'd love to chat to him.
You may well be hearing from
yes,
this.
I imagine.
We're going to be hearing from lots more people on this story.
I'd like to have been in the head of Raina Wynn where they go, well, here's all this money. And you think, okay, this is going to be on the screen. We have got Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs. This is suddenly going to... It's interesting, when you do a movie, it weirdly gets a lot more publicity than a book. So a book kind of sold forever and ever and ever and is much more lucrative than movies for an author. But when a movie comes out, there's a weird thing where you get elevated in traditional media.
Okay, but I'm not saying she has done this, but maybe if this isn't true, by this stage, the truth, how the truth, reality bending, that's what I'm talking about. The truth has sort of become that for you and you think that that's exactly what happened. I think you sit still and safe, and I don't think you're worried, because if a person were to have got away with something or got away with not the whole truth, then I don't think you suddenly think, oh, this is going to become so much more exposing, because you're not really au fait with that whole world and the fact that it is going to become so much more exposing. And
also you've convinced yourself that you're telling your truth. And so whatever comes out, oh no, they could actually say, oh, is this true? And you go, no, but it's very vibes-based, my truth, which some people's truth is these days. But the second that it came out on screen, you could tell that the Observer, who'd done this amazing piece, I think, well, this is a much bigger story now. This was previously like a 7-year-old book, which had sold a load of copies, which had made a lot of book groups very, very, very happy, but was sort of passing into the ether. But now, bang, it's on the front pages again, and boy, is it on the front pages now with these revelations.
Well, it's only just starting as the week goes on, and you think back because you're thinking, how will it play out? And obviously, probably the most famous one in sort of recent decades has been James Frey's Million Little Pieces memoir, which that was famous. It went on Oprah's book club, and he was, and then it was found out to be mostly rubbish.
Yeah.
Some readers sued I think that was Random House in America. Readers sued them. I mean, I know you can sue anyone in America, but it's interesting because that's a different... There were other ones, but they haven't resulted in legal. Not all of them have resulted in. Sometimes there's counter memoirs, obviously.
By the way, the next book, if I was Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs, I'd be thinking, I know the movie I want to be in now.
Yeah, for definite.
Yeah.
I mean, and so the question is what you do at this stage. I mean, they're consulting lawyers. It's pretty difficult. There may be a sort of fudge where they say, we look forward and not back, and we don't want to go into the full details. Like everyone, we've made mistakes, and we made financial mistakes and what have you. And they could do that, but I think people are now just going to want to find out absolutely everything, and they want to have other people on the sofa, because right now you've seen, Raina and Moth win many times. I've seen over the last few weeks because this film came out. And I think people are now just going to say, well, I don't understand. How could this possibly have been published? How could... also, they're going to say lots of things like that.
And I'm going to speak now to people who we're talking about Salt Path, and they'll say, I've literally never heard of this. And I think there's two interesting things about that. Firstly, we're talking about it because in publishing terms, it is a proper phenomenon. Yeah. I mean, one of the big sort of 10 books of the last 5 years or so. It's like, this huge thing that came from nowhere. It's made a huge amount of money for everybody. So in publishing, it's massive. And I'm fascinated by the amount of people, when you go online, who say, oh, so literally the first I've heard of this book. And I say this in publishing all the time, publishing meetings. Yeah. I said, it doesn't matter how much publicity you do, nobody has heard of any books. They just haven't. It's a thing. People who love books, it's like, professional golf. If you know about golf, you know all the players. If you don't know about golf, you don't know any of them. You go, Tiger Woods. And it's the same with books, So there's a huge amount of people who have never heard of this book, wouldn't dream of knowing it existed, might know, oh, yeah, wasn't there a film with that title? There's a Gillian Anderson thing. But even that, mainly not, because, publicity doesn't cut through. And it will be fascinating to see the sales figures next week for this book.